Now, if something happens that fits them in Canada, they will attach themselves to it for the betterment of their group. And then once they get what that is, they will go back to their insular communities.
Other groups, the Somalians, if they're in the hood, a lot of them they're kind of with us, and then some of them kind of building their own community. So we don't begrudge the ones that don't participate in building with us. If they're building and they're building good for them.
The more I lived here, a lot of the things that they were saying, it becomes undeniable. Now, this does not mean that, Africans hate Black Americans or anything like that. The real thing is the structure of how most Africans have to keep covering territory. It doesn't really allow them to participate in Pan-Africanism with equal parity with the rest of the diaspora. That's kind of how it works.
Let's get into it.
To label these individuals Pan-African when they are clearly not Pan-African is propaganda. You understand? Pan-Africanism is not a club, and Oshay is smart enough to know that. Therefore, he must be doing it on purpose. Therefore, what is his agenda? Are you here?
It's true. It's not a club. It's an ideology. We're going to speak about the FBA movement of lineage. We're going to get into that because I know some folks have been calling me out and being like, yeah, I'm bringing more attention to the idiocy by even speaking about it. But I have to call this shit out because folks are really acting like I'm disrespecting. Now, folks are acting like I'm disparaging Black Americans or African Americans, and it's like, no, it's FBA specifically. It's this dumbass movement. African Americans, Black, any type of Black I stand with. I'm not disparaging Ghanaians, Black Americans, Nigerians, nobody. So when they say stupid shit like that, it's like y'all are trying to be deflective because I'm calling out your stupid cult. Your dumbass cult started by Tariq Nasheed. Oh, these other folks are divisive. Then why the fuck is every time I hear from you motherfuckers, you niggas are talking about y'all ain't taking shit while you're shitting on other Black groups? But we're gonna get into that shortly.
If you are a Pan-African, Oshay, why are you labeling Pan-African with negativity while uplifting and bolstering FBA, which is a legitimate xenophobic hate group?
Let me turn this nigga up. Shout out to Afro Think Tank. Oh shit, I maxed the volume. I should have turned it up in pre-production. Nonetheless, let's get it.
Lifting and bolstering FBA, which is a legitimate xenophobic hate group.
Now, this is an African American, Black American. If the foundationals want to act like, oh, he's not one of them, he's a tether. No, this is an African American. This is an American Black man. Y'all could try to do all this bullshit and this gaslighting fuckery. He sees through the bullshit.
You know it is. But for monetary reasons, you don't go negative with FBA. But for some reason, the unifying force of Pan-Africanism, the ideology of Pan-Africanism, you chose to attach to xenophobic diaspora Africans who take advantage of the benefits that other people have laid down before they got there. You are confusing the message for your subscribers who are already confused on what Pan-Africanism is. Pan-African, you can't be a Pan-African if you're not a Pan-African. None of these people that Oshay talks about are Pan-Africans. None of these people that Oshay talks about displays any Pan-African ideology.
Now, shout out to Afro Think Tank and shout out to Oshay Duke Jackson. None of this is some sort of hit piece or let's tear these motherfuckers down. This is just a disagreement in ideas.
None of these people even call themselves a Pan-African, and they do, they're fucking lying.
So, all right, so let me kind of get into this and this whole thing about like, am I like becoming FBA just like, did I just become a fanatic or whatever like that? And the reality is, I've been living here and been coming here since like 2017.
Yeah.
To Africa. I am the most popular Black American that lives on the continent. That means, I'm talking about like lives, not just visits. So a lot of people know me. So a lot of the things that, let's say what Pharaoh said that used to say, Tariq Nasheed used to say, I used to kind of push back at a lot of that stuff, right? But the more I lived here, a lot of the things that they were saying, it becomes undeniable. Now, this does not mean that, Africans hate Black Americans or anything like that. The real thing is the structure of how most Africans have to keep covering territory, it doesn't really allow them to participate in Pan-Africanism with equal parity with the rest of the diaspora. That's kind of how it works. For example, let me explain what I'm saying. If you meet the average Kenyan or Ugandan, like their rent will be like $300, right? Yeah. Just on average. You can meet a girl, a lady is hella fine. If she comes from, let's say, Nakuru to Nairobi, she will then have to be a woman. She will have to pay for her kids, her mom's school fees, her other sisters and brothers, things like that. So then they might get a job, might get exploited. The job may pay $150. So now the young lady or the young man has to find out like 3 or 4 or 5 different businesses to try to start. Of course, they can't do all of them and they don't end up doing well. So the corruption is so bad, as a Black American, or let's say for you coming as a Canadian, they want us over there because we don't really have a lot of ties to Africa. So we're not going to interfere. They would rather us do well than the locals because, hey, the locals will still send in money for remittances, and then people like me and you come and develop and everything's okay. The problem is that once these people, they have to leave. Like, if it's not a war breaking out, the economy is so bad, you have to leave. So you go to Dubai, you go to Qatar, you go to Europe, you kind of work your way up from Europe, you go to the States. Now, if they go to the States or Canada or the UK, where the Blacks have already been there for a long time, and so things are already kind of figured out. And so once they kind of get into the States or Europe, they start having this kind of parasocial relationship with Africa because they know that they can't participate in Africa. They can never go back there. But the Pan-Africanism is more performative, right? And so now when Black Americans start encountering a lot of these Africans, once they get into America, for the most part, most of their money can't really go to building a better Pan-African world because their money is going to their family, brothers and sisters, things like that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, once I realized that this is the case, really what happens is that Pan-Africanism, if you think about it, it's largely for those people who have the most to support everybody else who has their own enclave. Let me give you what I mean. The Somalis have been destroyed in many cases because of what's happened in Somaliland and Somalia, French Somalia, then you have English. So what happens with the Somali people is that they're forced to cover territory all over the world. They're in Uganda, they're in Kenya, they're in Minnesota, they're in Canada.
Yeah.
So the only way they can really survive is they have these insular communities. And it kind of comes like, if they're refugees, it kind of comes in. So they get their money because they got to be off the radar because that's how they formulate it. It's really impossible to infiltrate Eritrean communities, Somalian, Djibouti. They're kind of to themselves Ethiopians, right? Now, if something happens that fits them in Canada, they will attach themselves to it for the betterment of their group. And then once they get what that is, they will go back to their insular communities. Because not that they don't like you, they're and Somalians for Somalis are tied to, number one, Islam first, and then if they're Bantu Somali or somebody else. So what happens is these insular communities are being themselves. Like you got the Nigerian Medical Association, you got the Somali American Association, you got all these things that, let's say you or me could not get into. But if it's the NAACP, everybody can get into it. If it's the Black journalists, everybody can get into it. So now the price of Pan-Africanism typically comes to, number one, the African diaspora who makes the most money, whether it's somebody else, are Black Americans, and then you must be open, but they stay insular. I see it all the time. So when Tariq talks about it from that perspective, that's right. That's not, the names and all that, I get it. But that's correct. And I'll give you another example before I'll be quiet. Look at what's going on right now in South Africa. South Africa, you got little Somalia already, little Ethiopia. You got these shops. It's all them. They do not collaborate. Most people who do performative Pan-Africanism, they don't collaborate. Like, let's say for me, like when I saw you, I know you from Canada, whatever. I'm like, I'm not gonna mess with you from Canada. You know me, I don't care. I come and support you like that. And you're the same way.
Yeah.
But most brothers and sisters are not like that. That's the truth. And so when we call people call that out, people want to get mad, but that's the truth.
But when
That's how it works.
you're speaking about certain communities, and it's like the Ethiopians, the Somalians, we know they kind of keep to themselves. But I'm like, is that a problem if they keep to themselves? Because a lot of these countries, the African countries you're speaking about, they're homogenous countries. When you speak about America, Canada, they're new world countries, they're melting pots, everybody's there. So to build with other blacks in Canada, there's no like Canada's a perfect example because there's no central governing body of blacks. There's no, we're the main blacks, we're from here. There is none of that. We're all immigrant blacks. So I'm a first generation. So I don't have the same relationship to Jamaica or Guyana as my mother and my father do because they're actually born there. I'm born in Canada. So my experience is that of a black American almost, because when I'm in elementary school and they're telling you to fill out the race says black/African American. I'm not American at all, but that's what it says in Canada. That's how they treat it. They see everything from a different type of perspective. You're black here. So they don't, the government, the white structure, they see black. They don't see individual structures. Certain groups, they build by themselves. They don't really interact. They don't intertwine. A lot of Nigerians, some of them will interact. Some of them will kind of, get into the main group of what's going on, central black. But other groups, the Somalians, if they're in the hood, a lot of them they're kind of with us. And then some of them kind of build in their own community. So we don't begrudge the ones that don't participate in building with us. If they're building and they're building good for them. I think the difference and the distinction we're dealing with is there's people that are pretending that they're for the collective black group and then they're only building with their own. I think that is the distinction.
That's a great point. And that's the real issue. I know when you listen to some of the guys that are talking about the foundational black community, I'm in the Pan-African community. I'm probably one of the most disliked guys. But what you're saying is absolutely correct because the people who have the most pay the biggest price. And if we're not careful, we're going to be next.